The sound of muffled screams echoed through the grand Attacunel mansion as Fine struggled to free herself from Yumi's grip. His eyes, wild with fury, bore into hers as he held the blade against her cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. "You think you can disrespect me?" he growled, his voice low and menacing. This was no ordinary wedding night. Downstairs, the guests danced and laughed, oblivious to the horror unfolding above. But this was the Attacunels. Behind their wealth and power lay secrets darker than the night sky. It all began with a family of 4 living in the bustling city of Lagos. They were the Attacunels, a wealthy and influential family with secrets darker than anyone could imagine. There was the mother, a joke, her daughter, a duck, her eldest son, Yumi, and her youngest son, Femi. The father, Ade, was no longer in the picture. Rumor had it that Ade was killed by a joke herself, but nothing was ever proven. The Attacunels had power, wealth, and connections that extended even into the police force. Yet, beneath their opulent facade lay a web of deceit, murder, and betrayal. A joke's favorite child was Yumi. He was charming on the outside, but a monster within. Yumi had a dark obsession. He murdered every woman he dated. Each time, he painted their final, sorrowful moments in gruesome detail and kept these paintings hidden in a secret room in his house. A joke knew of her son's atrocities, but, blinded by maternal love, she covered for him every time. Femi, the younger son, was desperate for his mother's approval. He wanted to take over the family's business empire, but always fell short in a joke's eyes. His wife, Adani, constantly pushed him to stand up for himself, but Femi was a mummy's boy through and through, allowing a joke to control his every move. Then there was a duck, the youngest and most troubled. She was a drug addict, sent to rehab after witnessing a horrifying scene years ago, her mother running over her father with a car to inherit his wealth. The trauma drove her into the depths of addiction. This twisted family dynamic set the stage for an even darker tale. One day, Yumi met Fine, a beautiful young woman from a poor background. Fine was already in love with someone else, but her impoverished parents forced her into a relationship with Yumi, seeing it as a golden opportunity. Fine endured Yumi's abuse, reporting it to her parents, who dismissed her complaints, telling her to persevere as it was part of marriage. The day of their wedding arrived, a grand and lavish event. But trouble was brewing. Fine's ex-boyfriend showed up uninvited, hoping for one last glimpse of her. Yumi spotted him and flew into a jealous rage. He demanded Fine meet him upstairs. When she arrived, Yumi, already undressed, slapped her and began cutting her with a blade. He was a maniac. As the ceremony downstairs grew restless, a joke sent Fine's friend to fetch her. What she found was horrifying, Yumi choking Fine. In a desperate attempt to save her friend, she pushed Yumi, causing him to hit his head and die instantly. Panic set in. What do we do now? Fine asked her friend, who suggested calling the police. But Fine reminded her that the Attacunel's influence meant no one would believe them. Desperation bred a wild idea. Fine's friend grabbed a butcher knife and suggested dismembering Yumi's body to smuggle it out of the venue. It was gruesome and nearly impossible, but they managed to move his corpse wrapped in a blood-stained duvet. However, a reporter who is known to be spying on the Attacunel saw them and secretly filmed the suspicious activity. The duo buried Yumi's body at an abandoned site, but their troubles were far from over. Fine and her friend returned to the Attacunel mansion, their clothes slightly disheveled and their faces pale from the horror of what they had just done. They tried to blend back into the festivities, but the air around them was thick with tension. Every sound, every laugh, every clink of a glass felt amplified, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Just as Fayan was about to sneak away to regain her composure, Yemi's mother, a joke, approached. Her sharp eyes scanned Fayan and then darted to her friend. "Where have you been?" A joke's voice was cold, calculated. "I sent you to bring Fayan down a while ago. Where's Yemi?" Fayan's heart raced, but she steadied her voice. I don't know, Ma. He was upset and stormed out. I haven't seen him since." A joke's eyes narrowed, and a vein throbbed on her temple. "Stormed out? What did you do to upset him on your wedding day?" "I didn't do anything," Fayan stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "He was just angry, and I thought he needed space." A joke didn't buy it. She spun around, her voice rising as she commanded the room. "Find my son. He couldn't have gone far. Search every room, the grounds, everywhere." Guests exchanged worried glances as a group of relatives and security guards began scouring the mansion. The music stopped and whispers filled the room. The once joyous wedding now felt like a crime scene. Fayan stood frozen, trying to maintain her composure. Her friend tugged at her arm, whispering, "We need to leave now." "No," Fayan hissed back. "That'll only make us look guilty. Stay calm." An hour passed with no sign of Yemi. A joke's frustration turned to desperation. She grabbed her phone and called the police, her voice trembling with a mix of fury and fear. "My son is missing and something is wrong. I need you here immediately." When the police arrived, they wasted no time. The mansion was cordoned off, and officers began questioning everyone from guests to staff. Innocent people who had come to celebrate were now being interrogated under the glaring lights of police torches. Fayan and her friend were among those questioned. "When did you last see the groom?" an officer asked, his notepad ready. Fayan swallowed hard. He was upset after the ceremony and went upstairs to cool off. "I didn't see him after that." The officer's eyes narrowed. "Did you argue?" "No, sir." Fayan hesitated, sensing the officer's suspicion. Her friend jumped in. "It's true. He left on his own. We've been downstairs the whole time." But their nervous demeanor didn't go unnoticed. The officer scribbled something down and moved on. As the questioning continued, a few guests who were found loitering in odd places were detained for further questioning, sparking outrage among the other attendees. A joke's rage boiled over, and she began accusing anyone who dared to speak up. "This is my son's wedding," she screamed. "He was here, and now he's gone. Someone knows what happened." The once grand wedding had descended into utter chaos. Fayan and her friend exchanged panicked glances, realizing the walls were closing in. As the night wore on, the police announced they would begin searching the grounds more thoroughly. An officer approached Fayan and her friend again, this time with a sharper tone. "You're staying here. We have more questions for you," he said, signaling for them to step aside. After the police searched around thoroughly and couldn't find Yemi, they came back to meet a joke, Fayan's and her friend, where they gathered and asked if they noticed someone suspicious during the celebration, but replied saying no. Immediately, the police left them, telling them they would continue the investigation and alert the public about their missing son. The next day after the terrible incident, the reporter who saw them when they were burying Yemi sent Fayan the footage of their terrible action and demanded 10 million naira, threatening to leak it otherwise. Fayan, already overwhelmed, had no idea where to get such money. Meanwhile, Yemi's family began to suspect foul play. On the night they were to pay the ransom, Fayan's friend concocted another dangerous plan. Fayan would meet the reporter alone with the money, and her friend would run him over with a car. The plan worked, but it added another layer of crime to their already bloody hands. Days later, fate turned against them. A stray dog unearthed Yemi's shallow grave, and the stench attracted the authorities. To make matters worse, the reporter had set up a plan B. The video footage was leaked posthumously. Now, Fayan and her friend were wanted fugitives. But what about a duck? She knew too much. Would she stay silent, or would she expose the truth in her drug-fueled haze? And what of a joke's next move? Would she exact her revenge or unravel completely under the weight of her secrets? Back at the Attacunel household, chaos reigned. Femi and his wife were secretly elated. With Yumi gone, Femi finally had a chance to lead the family business. A joke, on the other hand, was consumed by rage and vowed to make Fayan and her friend pay for what they had done. Who was the reporter, really? Did he have connections to Yumi's victims, or was he working for someone even more dangerous? Could this be part of a larger conspiracy? And what would the police uncover as they investigated the shallow grave? How long could Fayan and her friends stay ahead of the law? The answers lie ahead. Secrets yet to be uncovered are buried deeper than Yumi ever was. What will a joke do next? Can Fayan escape her fate? And who else might be drawn into this deadly game of vengeance? Stay tuned for part 2.